You're going to die and nobody will remember you. Not really, maybe for a generation, maybe two if you're lucky, but eventually your name becomes a faint notation in some genealogy website that nobody visits. Your great-great-grandchildren won't know your face, won't know your voice, won't know the things that kept you awake at 3 in the morning. You'll be a date on a chart, a name that sounds vaguely familiar during some holiday dinner before the conversation moves on to something more interesting, more immediate, more alive. And here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud, the thing that sits heavy in your chest when you're honest with yourself in the dark. Everything you're doing right now, every effort, every plan, every carefully constructed step toward some imagined future, it doesn't matter. Not in the way you think it does. Not in the way you were taught it should. But stick with me here, because what I'm about to tell you isn't depressing. It's the most freeing thing you'll hear all week, maybe all year. Let's do some math. Simple math. The kind that doesn't lie because numbers don't care about your feelings or your dreams or your carefully written 5-year plan. The universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. You, if you're lucky, might live 80, 90 years. Let's be generous and say you live to be 100. That's 0.0000007% of the universe's existence. I'm not even sure how many zeros that actually is. It's so small that the number itself seems embarrassed to exist. Now zoom out further. The universe will likely continue for trillions of years after you're gone. Stars will be born and die. Galaxies will collide. Black holes will evaporate through Hawking radiation over timescales so vast that the entire span of human civilization is less than a blink. You are not a footnote in this story. You're not even a punctuation mark. You're the space between letters in a word, in a sentence, in a book, in a library, that will eventually burn and nobody will notice the smoke. And your life, your specific human life, with its problems and its victories and its heartbreaks and its moments of joy, it occupies such an infinitesimally small point in space and time that calling it insignificant is being generous. But here's where it gets interesting. Right now, sitting there watching this, you probably feel something. Maybe resistance, maybe anger, maybe a voice in your head saying, but my life matters to me, matters to the people who love me, matters in ways that can't be measured by cosmic timescales. And you're right, but you're also wrong. And understanding why you're both right and wrong is where the liberation lives. You matter to yourself because you're the only perspective you have. You matter to the maybe dozen people who would genuinely be devastated if you disappeared tomorrow. But beyond that, beyond the immediate radius of people who share your temporal and spatial coordinates, you're already forgotten. You're already dust. You just haven't stopped moving yet. Think about this. Right now, in this moment, there are 7 billion other people on this planet living lives just as complex, just as meaningful to them as yours is to you. 7 billion internal universes, each one believing they're the center of something important. And you don't know any of them. Don't care about any of them. Can't care about any of them because caring has limits, and your brain can't even really comprehend a number like 7 billion. It's too big, too abstract. So when you die, when those 7 billion become 6,999,999,999, the universe will adjust, the math will recalculate, and everything will continue exactly as it was, except with one less consciousness briefly entertaining the idea that it mattered. I'm watching the field outside my window right now. Same field I've watched for years. Grass growing and dying. Seasons changing, wind blowing across dead stalks and green shoots with the exact same indifference. The field doesn't know I'm watching, doesn't care that I am or that I won't be someday. The field just is. And it'll be here long after I'm gone, doing exactly what it's doing now, serving no purpose, fulfilling no grand design, just existing in the way fields exist until they don't. That's what we are too. Just existing until we don't. The difference is we've built entire civilizations around pretending otherwise. I need you to think about something. Really think about it. Name 5 people from 500 years ago who weren't kings or queens or military conquerors, just regular people. People who worked and loved and raised children and thought their lives meant something. You can't, can you? Maybe you can name 1 or 2 if you're particularly well-read. But most people from 500 years ago, people who laughed and cried and worried about money and felt the exact same emotions you feel, they're gone. Not just dead, gone. Erased so completely that even the memory of their existence has evaporated. And that was only 500 years ago. Now think about 5,000 years, 50,000, 500,000. The overwhelming majority of humans who have ever lived have left absolutely no trace, no name, no story, no evidence they ever drew breath. Just bones in the ground that will eventually become sediment, that will eventually become rock, that will eventually get subducted into the Earth's mantle and melted and recycled into something else entirely. You are going to be one of those people. I'm going to be one of those people. The person you love most in the world is going to be one of those people, completely forgotten, as if we never existed at all. But here's what's fascinating about human beings. Knowing this, really knowing this in our bones, we still build monuments. Not physical monuments necessarily, though we do that too. We build monuments out of our lives, out of our careers, out of our relationships, out of our children. We construct these elaborate structures of meaning and purpose and legacy, and we point at them and say, see, I was here. I mattered. Don't forget me. And everyone nods politely and then forgets anyway. I know a man who worked 43 years at the same company. 43 years. He showed up every day, did his job, got his promotions, climbed the ladder, made good money, felt important, felt necessary, felt like he was building something that mattered. Then he retired. And within 6 months, the company had restructured his entire department. The systems he'd built were dismantled. The people he'd mentored moved on or were laid off. And the work he'd spent 43 years doing was simply gone. Not bad, not failed, just gone. Like it never existed in the first place. He called me about a year after he retired. Didn't know what to do with himself. Kept saying, I thought it would mean more. He didn't say what it was. Didn't have to. We both knew. He meant the whole thing. The career, the dedication, the sacrifice, the years. He thought it would mean more than it did. Thought meaning was something you could accumulate through effort, through showing up, through dedication. But meaning doesn't accumulate. It evaporates. It's always evaporating. Every moment you're alive, the meaning you made yesterday is already becoming less meaningful. The pride you felt last year feels smaller this year. The achievement you thought defined you becomes just another thing you did once. And eventually, if you live long enough, you watch almost everything you thought mattered reveal itself as temporary, as conditional, as dependent on circumstances that no longer exist. This isn't cynicism. This is just what happens when you pay attention, when you don't lie to yourself, when you sit still long enough to see the pattern. Your children, if you have them, will love you. And then they'll grow up and have their own lives, and you'll become the person they call on holidays and feel guilty about not visiting more. And then you'll die, and they'll grieve genuinely. And then they'll continue their lives because that's what living things do. They continue, and eventually you'll be the parent they sometimes talk about, then the grandparent their kids never met, then the name in the family tree their great-grandchildren stumble across and can't quite place. 3 generations, maybe 4 if you're lucky. That's how long you persist as an actual person in anyone's memory. After that, you're just data. A date, a location, a faint genetic echo in someone's bone structure or tendency toward alcoholism. I'm standing at the edge of this field, and I'm thinking about all the people who stood here before me. Because this land is old. This specific piece of Earth has been here through ice ages and warm periods and the rise and fall of entire civilizations. And people stood exactly where I'm standing, looked at the same horizon, felt the same wind, had thoughts just as complex and feelings just as real as mine. And I don't know a single one of their names. Don't know what they worried about, what they hoped for, what kept them awake at night. They're gone, completely gone. And so will I be, and so will you. And the field doesn't care, the wind doesn't care. The Earth spinning through space at 67,000 miles per hour around a star that will eventually consume it doesn't care. Nothing cares. Nothing is keeping score. Nobody is watching to see if you fulfill your potential or waste your gifts or live up to expectations. The universe is not paying attention to you. At all. It never was. And that, right there, is where the liberation starts. Let me ask you something. How much of your life is spent trying to matter? Not living, not experiencing, not being, but trying to matter, trying to be significant, trying to leave a mark, trying to be remembered, trying to build something that lasts. How much energy goes into that? How many decisions are made, not because you want to make them, but because you're afraid of what it means if you don't? How many times have you done something you didn't want to do because not doing it would mean you were lazy or unmotivated or not living up to your potential? The pressure to matter is enormous. It's crushing. It's everywhere. You're supposed to find your passion, supposed to make a difference, supposed to leave the world better than you found it, supposed to be remembered for something, supposed to have impact, supposed to matter. But why? Says who? Who decided that mattering was the point? Who decided that significance was the goal? Who decided that legacy was what we should be chasing? I'll tell you who. Other people who are also terrified of not mattering, people who built entire philosophies and religions and social structures around the idea that human life has to mean something beyond just being alive. Because the alternative, the idea that we're just here and then we're not, and that's the whole story, that's too scary, too empty, too honest. So we invented meaning. We created it. We built these elaborate systems of significance and importance and legacy, and then we convinced ourselves they were real, were objective, were true. And then we started judging each other and ourselves based on how well we lived up to these completely invented standards. You're supposed to have a successful career. Why? Because we decided that productivity equals value, that your worth as a human is measured by your output, by what you produce, by how efficiently you convert your limited time on Earth into money or status or recognition. You're supposed to raise successful children. Why? Because we decided that reproduction is how you achieve immortality, that your children are your legacy, that you live on through them, except they're not you, they're them. And they'll die too. And their children will die, and eventually the entire chain of genetic inheritance that you started will terminate, and it'll be like you never existed at all. You're supposed to make a difference. Why? Because we decided that changing things is inherently good, that leaving your mark is important. That impact is the measure of a life well lived. But most changes don't last. Most impacts are temporary. Most marks fade. And the things we think are important now will be forgotten or irrelevant in 100 years. Think about the things people in 1924 thought were important, the causes they fought for, the values they held, the changes they wanted to see. How much of that do you know about? How much of that do you care about? How much of that has any bearing whatsoever on your life right now? Almost none of it. And that's only 100 years ago, not even a long time by historical standards. Just one long human lifetime. And already, most of what they thought mattered has evaporated into irrelevance. Your great-grandchildren, if you have them, will not care about the things you care about, will not value the things you value, will not remember the struggles you thought defined your generation. They'll have their own problems, their own values, their own invented meanings to chase after. And that's if climate change doesn't completely reshape civilization in the next 50 years. If artificial intelligence doesn't make human labor obsolete. If nuclear weapons don't finally get used. If any of the dozen existential threats facing humanity don't actually terminate the project entirely. We're one solar flare away from losing the electrical grid, one asteroid impact away from extinction, one pandemic worse than COVID away from societal collapse, one nuclear exchange away from winter. The thread we're all hanging by is so thin, it's almost not there at all. And you're worried about your career, about your legacy, about whether you matter. The tyranny of mattering is this. It keeps you from living. It keeps you from experiencing the only thing that's actually real, which is this moment right now. This breath, this sensation of being alive, this brief flicker of consciousness that will very soon be extinguished forever. You're spending your one wild and precious life trying to build something that lasts in a universe where nothing lasts, where even stars die, where even black holes evaporate, where even the fundamental particles that make up matter will eventually decay into nothing. Nothing lasts. Nothing matters. And the sooner you really understand that, really feel it in your bones, the sooner you can stop trying to matter and start just being. Here's where this gets good. Here's where everything flips. Because if nothing matters, if nothing lasts, if you're going to be forgotten anyway, if all your efforts are ultimately futile and all your achievements are temporary and all your legacy is going to evaporate, then what? Then you're free. You're free from the expectation to be significant, free from the pressure to make a difference, free from the burden of having to live up to your potential, free from the fear of failure, because failure only matters if success matters, and success only matters if anything matters, and we've already established that nothing does. If nothing you do actually matters in the grand scheme, then the only thing that matters is what matters to you right now. Not to your parents, not to your teachers, not to your society, not to future generations who won't remember you anyway. Just to you. Right now. In this moment. And that's not small. That's not insignificant. That's everything, because right now is all you have. Right now is all anyone has. The past is memory. The future is imagination. The only thing that's actually real is this. Now. This moment of consciousness experiencing itself. If you could really truly accept that nothing you do matters in any cosmic sense, what would you do? What would you do if you stopped trying to build a legacy, stopped trying to be remembered, stopped trying to make a difference, stopped trying to live up to potential, stopped trying to matter? You'd probably do the things you actually want to do, the things that feel good, the things that make this brief experience of being alive more pleasant, more interesting, more full of whatever it is that makes a moment worth experiencing. You'd probably stop sacrificing your present for a future that's not guaranteed. Stop working jobs you hate to build careers that won't remember you. Stop maintaining relationships that drain you because you're supposed to. Stop pretending to care about things you don't care about because caring about them is what serious people do. You'd probably be more honest, not cruel, not reckless, but honest. Because if nothing matters, then lying doesn't matter either. And if lying doesn't matter, then why do it? Why pretend to be someone you're not? Why perform emotions you don't feel? Why maintain a version of yourself that's exhausting to sustain? You'd probably be kinder too, because if nothing matters, then kindness is just as meaningless as cruelty. And if they're both equally meaningless, you might as well choose the one that feels better. The one that makes your brief time here more pleasant. The one that doesn't add unnecessary suffering to a world that's already hard enough. This isn't a prescription for hedonism. It's not permission to be selfish or destructive. Because selfishness and destruction feel bad, they create more suffering. And if you're going to be here for this brief moment anyway, you might as well make it hurt less rather than more. The liberation isn't in doing whatever you want without consequences. Consequences still exist. Pain still exists. Suffering still exists. The liberation is in choosing your actions based on what actually matters to you, not what you've been told should matter. I'm watching a crow land on a fence post right now. It's doing whatever crows do. Looking for food, probably. It's not worried about its legacy, not concerned about whether it's living up to its potential as a crow, not comparing itself to other crows, not wondering if it matters. It's just being a crow, doing crow things. And then eventually it'll die, and another crow will land on the same fence post and do the same things, and the cycle will continue until there are no more crows, or no more fence posts, or no more planet for either to exist on. We could learn something from that crow. We could learn to just be, to just do the things that being a human involves, without the constant weight of needing it to mean something beyond itself. You don't need your life to matter cosmically for it to matter to you. You don't need to be remembered to have value right now. You don't need to make a difference in the grand scheme, to make a difference in this moment, in this room, in this relationship, in this experience. The smallest things become profound when you stop needing them to be significant. A good meal, a conversation that makes you laugh, a sunset that catches you off guard, a moment of genuine connection with another temporary consciousness, a book that makes you think differently, a walk where your mind quiets down, a morning where you wake up not dreading the day. These things don't matter in any permanent way, but they matter right now, and right now is all that's ever happening anyway. So how do you actually live with this? How do you wake up every day knowing nothing you do will last and still find reason to get out of bed? You stop looking for reasons. That's how. You stop needing your life to have a reason, a purpose, a point. You stop demanding that existence justify itself to you. You accept that it doesn't have to, that it won't, that it never will. You're here. You didn't choose to be here, didn't ask for consciousness, didn't request this particular arrangement of atoms that became a brain capable of worrying about meaning. But here you are anyway. And you can spend your time here angry about that, resentful about that, demanding explanations that don't exist. Or you can just be here, just experience it, just see what happens. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying you wake up one day and suddenly you're free from all the conditioning, all the pressure, all the deeply ingrained belief that you're supposed to be important somehow. It takes practice. It takes constant reminding. It takes catching yourself mid-anxiety about whether you're doing enough and asking enough for what, according to who, and why does it matter? Most of the time, when you really examine those questions, the answers fall apart. You're trying to do enough for some imagined audience that's not actually watching, according to some standard you didn't even choose for yourself, because it matters to some future that might not even happen. Let me tell you about a man I knew. He's dead now. Cancer. He found out he had maybe 6 months, and he spent the first 2 months devastated. Not because he was dying. Everyone's dying. He was devastated because he hadn't done the things he thought he was supposed to do, hadn't built the career he wanted, hadn't traveled enough, hadn't made enough money, hadn't left a mark, and then something shifted. He stopped trying to cram meaning into the time he had left, stopped trying to make his death mean something, stopped worrying about legacy and impact and all the things we're supposed to worry about, and he just lived. Just did whatever felt right in each moment, ate food he liked, talked to people he cared about, sat outside and watched weather happen, read books he'd been meaning to read, listened to music, just existed without needing it to be significant. And he told me, about 3 weeks before he died, he told me those last 4 months were more real than the previous 40 years. Because he stopped performing, stopped trying, stopped needing his life to mean something beyond what it was, and what it was enough. Not because it was significant, just because it was. That's the practice. Catching yourself trying to matter and asking if you actually need to. Catching yourself sacrificing now for later and asking if later is guaranteed. Catching yourself doing things because you're supposed to and asking who decided that. Catching yourself comparing your life to others and realizing their lives don't matter either. It's not about giving up. It's about giving up the need for your life to be more than it is. It's about letting go of the story that you're here for a reason, that your life has a purpose you need to discover, that you're building toward something important. You're not building toward anything. You're just here, and then you won't be. And in between those 2 points, you have this experience. This strange, brief experience of being conscious in a universe that mostly isn't. And you can spend that experience trying to make it significant, or you can just have it. Just have the experience. That's the practice. When you find yourself spiraling about whether you're wasting your life, just have the experience of spiraling. When you find yourself anxious about the future, just have the experience of anxiety. When you find yourself happy, just have that. When you find yourself sad, just have that. Don't make it mean anything. Don't try to learn from it or grow from it or use it to become a better person. Just have it. Just be in it. Just let it happen without needing it to be a stepping stone to something else, because there is no something else. There's just this, and then more of this, and then no more of this. That's the whole story. I'm back at the field again, always back at the field, because the field doesn't lie, doesn't pretend, doesn't perform significance. It just is. Grass grows, grass dies, wind blows, rain falls, sun shines, seasons change. And none of it means anything. None of it is trying to mean anything. The field isn't worried about its legacy, isn't concerned about whether it matters, isn't comparing itself to other fields, isn't trying to be the best field it can be. It's just a field, existing in the way fields exist, being what it is without apology or explanation. That's wisdom. The kind of wisdom you can't get from books or teachers or philosophy. The kind you can only get from sitting still long enough to notice that most of existence isn't worried about existing. It's just doing it. Trees don't wonder if they're reaching their potential. Rivers don't worry about their purpose. Mountains don't question their significance. They just are. And then eventually they're not. The tree falls, the river dries up, the mountain erodes, and the world continues without them, exactly as it would have continued with them. We're the only ones who need it to mean something. We're the only ones who can't accept just being. We need purpose, need significance, need to believe we're here for a reason. And that need, that desperate need for meaning, it's what makes us miserable. Because the universe doesn't care about your need for meaning. It's not withholding meaning from you. It's not hiding purpose somewhere you haven't found yet. There is no meaning. There never was. We invented it because we couldn't handle the alternative, but the alternative isn't bad. It's not dark. It's not depressing. It's just honest. You're here. You're alive. You're conscious. And for this brief moment, you get to experience what it's like to be a human on a planet, in a solar system, in a galaxy, in a universe that's mostly empty space. That's it. That's the whole deal. And you can make that mean something if you want. You can build elaborate philosophies about purpose and significance and legacy. You can construct entire lives around the idea that you're here for a reason. You can dedicate yourself to causes and movements and ideals. But at the end, when you're lying there taking your last breath, none of that will matter. What'll matter is whether you actually lived, whether you experienced this strange gift of consciousness, whether you were here, really here, present in your own life, or whether you were always somewhere else, always in the future or the past, always trying to be significant instead of just being. The field doesn't judge. The sky doesn't care. The universe isn't keeping score. Nobody's watching to see if you figured it out. Nobody's grading your performance. Nobody's measuring your impact. You're free. You've always been free. You just didn't know it, because you were too busy trying to matter. Here's the paradox. the thing that seems contradictory but isn't. Once you really accept that nothing matters, that you're dust that briefly became conscious and will return to dust, something strange happens. Things start mattering more, not less, more. Because when you stop needing your life to be cosmically significant, you start noticing the significance of small things, the things that were always there, but you were too busy chasing importance to see. The way light comes through a window in the morning, the first sip of coffee when it's exactly the right temperature, the moment a song catches you off guard and you remember something you hadn't thought about in years, the conversation that goes somewhere unexpected, the laugh that's completely genuine, the quiet that's actually peaceful instead of heavy. These moments don't last, don't build toward anything, don't mean anything beyond themselves. And that's exactly what makes them perfect. When you stop demanding that moments be significant, they become significant by just being moments. When you stop needing experiences to teach you something, or change you, or move you toward some goal, experiences become enough just by being experiences. You start noticing that being alive feels a certain way, that consciousness has a texture, that existing moment to moment without the constant weight of needing to matter is actually pleasant, not euphoric, not blissful, just pleasant, just easier, just lighter. The pressure releases. The constant judgment about whether you're doing enough, being enough, achieving enough, it just quiets down. Not because you've convinced yourself you are enough, but because you've realized enough is a made-up standard that doesn't apply to existing. You don't need to be enough. You don't need to do enough. You don't need to matter enough. You just need to be here. And you're already doing that. You're already here. You've been here the whole time. You just kept missing it because you were looking for something bigger, but there is nothing bigger. There's just this moment, this breath, this sensation of being a person who's aware they're a person, this strange loop of consciousness, observing itself and knowing it's temporary and somehow finding that beautiful instead of tragic. I'm watching the sun set over this field right now, same sun that's been setting over this same field for millions of years. Long before humans were here, long before anything on this planet was conscious enough to notice sunsets, and it'll keep setting long after we're gone, after everything we built crumbles, after everything we thought was important is forgotten, and it's beautiful, not because it means something, not because it's significant, not because it's building toward anything, just because it is, just because, for this moment, light is hitting atmosphere in a way that creates colors. And I'm here to see it. And that's enough. That's always been enough. We just convinced ourselves it wasn't. We just decided that beauty had to mean something beyond being beautiful, that moments had to serve a purpose beyond being moments, that life had to justify itself with significance. But life doesn't justify itself. It just happens. And then it stops happening. And the gap between those 2 points is where we exist, where we get to notice things, feel things, experience things, be things. And none of it has to matter for it to be worth having. None of it has to last for it to be real right now. None of it has to be significant for it to be everything. You're going to die. I'm going to die. Everyone you love is going to die. Everything you build will crumble. Everything you achieve will be forgotten. Everything you think is important will become irrelevant. And that's okay. That's more than okay. That's perfect. Because it means you can stop trying to make it all mean something and just let it be what it is. Brief, temporary, small, human, real. So here we are. End of the conversation. And you're still here, still listening, still being, still that brief flicker of consciousness in an indifferent universe. And I want to ask you something, not rhetorically, actually ask you. What are you going to do with this? With the understanding that nothing you do actually matters, with the knowledge that you're free from the tyranny of significance? Are you going to keep trying to build a legacy that nobody will remember? Keep sacrificing your present for a future that's not guaranteed? Keep performing a version of yourself that's exhausting to maintain? Or are you going to try something different? Are you going to see what it feels like to just be here, to just experience this brief moment of consciousness without needing it to be more than it is? I don't know what you'll choose. It doesn't matter what you'll choose. Not to me, not to the universe, but it might matter to you. And that's the only mattering that's ever been real anyway. If this changed something for you, if this shifted something in how you see your life, drop a comment below and tell me what. Not because I need to know, not because your comment matters in any cosmic sense, but because maybe writing it down will help you remember, will help you practice, will help you catch yourself the next time you start spiraling about significance. Subscribe if you want more of this, more honest conversations about the things we pretend aren't true, more sitting with uncomfortable realities, more liberation through accepting what is instead of demanding what should be. Hit the bell if you want to be notified, or don't. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. And that's exactly why it's worth doing. The field is still here, the wind is still blowing, the grass is still growing and dying, and I'm still here, for now, watching it all happen. Being part of it, not trying to make it mean something, just being dust that's briefly conscious, just like you, and that's enough. It's always been enough. Thanks for being here with me, for this brief moment. This temporary overlap of our temporary consciousnesses, this fleeting connection in an indifferent universe. Subscribe and leave a comment below. See you next time, or not.